Welcome back to the show. Let's bring in One Nation Senator Malcolm Roberts now. Senator, good to catch up. Thank you for joining me. The polls keep telling us we are facing minority government. Now, One Nation is obviously in the box seat to be a key player again. What are you after?
What we want is whatever is in the best interest of Australia, Danica, and thank you for having us. Both the major parties have copied our policy, some of our policy. Both are copying them because our policies are resonating with the electorate. You know, the key problem in our economy, the key problem in our whole society is the sheer laziness, stupidity, gutlessness of both Liberal and Labor politicians. They won't do the things that people want them to do.
But can you give us an example, though? I mean, I know about the fuel excise because I know that was something that One Nation had been pushing for. It's now been adopted as a coalition policy to take it to this election. But if you are indeed in the box seat, as the polls do suggest a minority, what would One Nation be looking for?
We want to cut $90 billion of government waste and duplication. We want to start a special savings system, savings plan. Part of that, for example, would be to end the UN net zero, pull out of it, stop it, end the UN Paris Agreement, the so-called agreement that's not an agreement, that's decimating our economy and our energy sector. And the third one is to stop, abolish, cut, kill the Department of Climate Change and Energy. And another one would be to stop the National Indigenous Australians Agency, NIAA, and to cut waste dramatically in the Aboriginal industry.
Yeah, I mean, really
just
good.
Some of our $90 billion in savings.
Yeah, I think they're all really good points, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But just on that fuel excise, how do you think these economic policies will stack up? Because you've got the coalition with the fuel excise versus Labor with a $5 a week for a coffee, but in 15 months' time. How do you think that will play to voters?
Well, One Nation policy is to halve the fuel excise tax on diesel and petrol. That is by far the best, for several reasons. And Liberals have now copied it. It's far, far better than a tax cut that could be revoked in the future, and a tax cut that is going to save Australians and put less money back in their pocket than the fuel excise saving. There's far more money to be put back into people's pockets through the fuel excise cut, halving of the fuel excise tax. But the other thing that's really important, Danica, it's not only the more money in people's pockets, it's the fact that fuel excise is an input into every business in this country, just about. That'll reduce inflation, improve productivity, improve the returns for most businesses, lower prices of most businesses' products and services, and that will lower inflation, which will lower housing interest rates. It's a win-win for the economy because it makes the economy more efficient, more productive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, you mentioned both of the major parties letting voters down. I've noticed that when Sky News goes to the streets and talks to people, talks to everyday punters, they say that they are frustrated with both of the major parties. How do you then encourage people to vote for One Nation and not give votes to, say, the Greens, for example, or for the Teals? Because I think, you know, God help this country if it's a Labor, Greens, Teals minority government.
That's exactly correct. We do not want that to happen. We've got to make sure that the Liberals get in ahead of Labor. So that's one thing we would say. We would ask our voters to preference or to vote Liberals ahead of Labor in their preferences. But what we've got to do is focus on the basics, and that's the economy and cost unaffordability right across the country. People are hurting, and the Greens are responsible for massive immigration, which is driving up prices for housing, driving up inflation. The Greens are responsible for stopping timber cutting in this country. How the hell do you build houses? The Greens are responsible for the energy catastrophe we're embarking on. And the Greens want to make it far, far worse. Everywhere around the world, as the proportion of solar and wind increases, the cost of electricity increases dramatically. Everywhere. And both the Greens are really pushing for 100% solar and wind. Labor's pushing for 82%. The Liberal Nationals, they don't know what they want. All they want is more solar and wind, but they're not going to tell us how much. And then we embark on a nuclear program, and we're saying, good on you for embarking on the nuclear program, but nuclear is not as cheap as coal. We want to boost the coal fleet in this country. Yeah. So that's why the Liberals are better than Labor, but Liberals are a poor copy. They're basically One Nation light.
Well, look, it's going to be an interesting 5 weeks of the campaign, Malcolm Roberts. But yeah, interesting about the fuel excise, though. As you said, One Nation, that was something that you pushed first. We've got to leave it there. Good to catch up. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Malcolm Roberts.